Good afternoon to everyone at today's public hearing of the Vetting Commission established under Law Number 65 on the external evaluation of judges and candidates for judges of the Supreme Court of Justice. I'm Scott Bales, the chair of the Commission, and I declare this session open. The hearing is being conducted under the Commission's rules of organization and functioning as part of the evaluation process. The subject of today's hearing is Alexandru ROTARI, a candidate for the position of judge on the Supreme Court of Justice. The evaluation related to Mr. ROTARI was carried out pursuant to Law Number 65 on the external evaluation of judges and candidates for judges of the Supreme Court of Justice. Mr. ROTARI is an attorney at law who previously, between 2004 and 2014, served as a judge at the Commercial Court. Mr. ROTARI, welcome.
Thank you and good day.
I'm joined by the 5 other Commission members. To my left is Vice Chair Andre Bevel and Commission members Lavley Perling and Yuri Gatskin. To my right are Commissioners Juliana Civanini and Lillian Anshu. The Commission is also assisted by members of its Secretariat, and you may also see in the room representatives of the media and the public. A photographer will take pictures only briefly at the start of the hearing. The hearing is being conducted with interpretation between Romanian and English. To allow for accurate interpretation, I ask everyone to speak clearly and slowly. Only one person should speak at a time. Proceedings are being recorded. The recordings of the Commission's public hearings generally will be available online within 3 days of the hearing on the Commission's website, www.vettingmd.eu. During the hearing, one or more members of the Commission will ask you questions. Please answer truthfully and completely. Your explanations are important to the Commission in verifying your financial and ethical integrity. At the end of the hearing, you will be given an opportunity to make a brief statement. In posing questions, we will take into account your privacy and, where possible and appropriate, that of your family members and close persons. So we will leave out unnecessary details on such things as ID numbers, bank account numbers, specific real estate addresses. To preserve privacy, we ask you to do the same. I will start by briefly reviewing the evaluation process for Mr. ROTARI. The Commission initiated its evaluation on the 24th of August 2023 by notifying Mr. ROTARI through email and asking him to complete and return the ethics questionnaire and financial declarations required by Law Number 65. Mr. ROTARI returned the completed declarations and questionnaire on the 28th of August 2023. As part of evaluating a subject's ethical and financial integrity, the Commission also obtains information from many other sources, such as the National Integrity Authority, the State Fiscal Service, the General Inspectorate of the Border Police, other public institutions, financial institutions, and open sources. The Commission assesses information it obtains for relevance and reliability. On the 19th of December 2023, the Commission asked Mr. ROTARI to provide additional information by December 26th to clarify certain matters. He provided answers and documents within the set deadline. On the 18th of January 2024, the Commission asked Mr. ROTARI to provide additional information. Again, he provided the answers and documents within the set deadline. On the 1st of March 2024, we notified Mr. ROTARI that the Commission in its investigation had identified some areas of doubt about his compliance with the ethical and financial criteria. We also invited him to attend today's hearing. On the 4th and 5th of March 2024, Mr. ROTARI sent to the Commission additional information and documents. Mr. ROTARI, with regard to the information you've provided up to this point, do you have any corrections or additions that you wish to make to your answers to the Commission's request?
I stand by my position expressed in the rounds of questions, including the additional documents that were attached. And when last week I received my personal file, my file was not completed. A few documents were missing, which were recently requested from Ukraine, and these could not be presented in time. I mean that on Friday I received a notification from the Commission, so you understand that in a foreign country who is in a situation of conflict, I could not get the documents in that time. But the Secretariat informed me that they are in the process of attaching these documents to the file, and I really hope they are all included in the file. Only having this clarification. For the rest, I stand by all my explanations that I provided in the rounds of questions till of today.
Thank you. Are the answers that you provided to the Commission and the information you provided in your 5-year declaration and in the ethics questionnaire that you returned on the 28th of August 2023 still accurate as of today?
Yes, you're right.
Okay. Members of the Commission will ask some further questions. We will try to keep our questions short and to the point. We ask that your answers similarly be short and to the point. And I will begin the questions this afternoon. In the materials that you provided with your supplemental notes on March 4th and 5th, you describe some resources that you say your parents had as a result of different transactions. So I'd like to start with some questions about those transactions. You identify a sale of an apartment on Delano Street in 2004, which you state that your parents sold that apartment to your mother-in-law, receiving a price of 33,900 lei, correct? How did your parents receive the payment for the sale of the apartment? Was it by a bank transfer? Was it in cash? How did they actually get the amount they received for the sale of the apartment?
Well, I can confirm that I even was present during that transaction. The money was received in cash, as it was typical at that time and even now in our society.
And after they received that payment in 2004, how did they keep the proceeds? Did they just keep it in cash?
Yes, the money was kept in cash. If I'm not mistaken, it was their own money, so I cannot tell you for sure. But given the practice that was preserved in my parents' family, yes, they kept it in cash.
Okay. Your supplemental note also identifies a sale of another apartment in 2007, an apartment on, I believe it was Strada Alba Iulia, and the information you provided identifies the sale price as 730,500 lei, correct?
Mă întrebați pe mine prețul? Nu, suma e un moment.
Just one moment. 734,500 lei. 734,000 lei.
Yes. And with regard to the sale of that apartment, again, how did your parents receive that payment? Was that also in cash?
Yes, the money was transmitted in cash. Even more, I want to say that this apartment was sold to the family of my cousin on my father's line, so it's some relatives.
And did your parents keep the proceeds from the sale? Did they keep that in cash as well?
Yes, my parents kept at that moment like this because they didn't have a bank account, so they kept money at home.
And then you've already referred to some transactions in the Ukraine where I understand your grandparents had some property that was sold, correct?
Nu, bunicii mei nu au vândut bunuri
It's
mobile.
not my grandparents who
Bunicii mei au
sold
avut,
some
două
properties.
case într-o-
They
în
real estate. They had two
Părerea
houses in
tatălui meu.
the yard
Deci,
of
în
my
perioada
father's
de aceea, de 50
and related land plot of 50
și au avut
acres.
și o parcelă
And
de
they had
confiscată,
also
100
a
de ani.
land plot of
Deci, aceste
100
bunuri, după
acres.
decesul bunelui,
So after my
în 2010, dacă nu mă înșel,
grandfather
bunelul
died in
decedat,
2010,
în 2011 au fost
in
înstrăinate
2011 these were alienated and the money were divided between the children, meaning my father and his
bunica fiind
sister,
decedată mai
because
devreme,
my
în
grandmother
91.
died earlier in 99.
I see. So in your supplemental note, you state that your father received 15,000 euro from that, from the land in the Ukraine, correct?
Da, ceea ce am aflat
Yes.
eu de la
So
părinți.
what I found out from my
N-am
parents.
participat
I did
la
not take in
tranzacția
part
asta și-
in this
dar
process, in
din
this
spusele
transaction,
părinților,
but from what my parents
bunurile
said,
au fost înstrăinate
these
30.000,
properties were
fiind
alienated
împărțite în
for
jumătate între frate și soră.
30,000, which was divided equally between my father and his sister.
So do you know how your father received those proceeds? Was it in euros in cash?
Nu pot să vă răspund, dar
I
bănuiesc că
cannot
numerar,
tell
pentru
you
că
that, but I suppose it was in
bunurile se aflau
cash
în
because the
localitate
properties
sătească,
were
de
in a
parte de,
village, in a rural
urbă și
area,
nu cred că
far from
au
the urban
recurs,
area, so I don't think
într-un
they
sat la
resorted in
vânzare
such a
prin
place
intermediul
to
băncilor, prin transferuri.
use transfers and bank procedures.
Bănuiesc că și mai cu seamă că
I suppose that, and especially that the transaction was concluded in Ukraine. So I believe the money was sent in cash.
And do you know how the money would have been transferred to Moldova?
Bănuiesc că au fost transferați în mod
I
legal,
suppose that they were
părinții
transferred
mei foarte
legally
des
because my
circulau,
parents
făceau,
used to travel
drumul
quite
acasă
often to
părintească,
their
tot mai mult, toate
parents'
rudele sunt în
house.
regiunea Ucraina și
Given
Moldova,
that all
doar
our
sora
relatives are in
tatălui.
Ukraine, here in Moldova there is only the sister of my
cred că
father.
acești bani au fost
So I don't
stănuiți,
believe
adică
that
serviciul
this money
vamal a fost
was hidden by
declarat, nici nu era
from the
cazul,
customs
cred că
service.
declarare,
I
dacă
don't
au
even
fost
think
mai
that
mult
was the
trași
case
aduși
to
în Moldova.
declare
Dacă la asta vă
the money if they were brought in installments, if you mean that.
But I take it from your answer, you don't really know how the money would have been brought to Moldova.
Eu intuiesc că banii au
I
fost
just
transmiși,
might
adică aduși în
suppose
Moldova,
that
Odată
this money
când,
was brought in
având în
Moldova once they had them
deci
in their possession.
traversând frontiera de
While
stat,
crossing the state
nu
border,
prin transfer bancar,
so not
sunt
but
convins
by
la
bank
99%.
transfer. I'm 99% sure it was not by bank transfer.
Okay. Let me shift gears a little bit. I understand you've lived in a house owned by your parents, correct? You live in the house on Petromovila?
Da, chiar și acum locuim acolo.
Yes, even now we're living there with my family
Maica mea.
and my mother.
And I think your parents acquired that in 2005. Is that correct?
Nu pot spune exact.
I
în ce an au
cannot express myself on
achiziționat-o,
that
așa, în jurul anilor
case. I don't know exactly. It was about 2005, maybe
Ei n-au
later a
achiziționat-o,
little
deci
bit.
ei construit-o.
They did build it actually, did not
Ea nu a
acquire
fost
it.
achiziționată.
It was not purchased.
Do you know how much has been spent to construct that house?
Nu pot să vă spun.
I
nu
could
cunosc.
not tell you that. I don't know.
Okay, and then I understand also your father bought a car in 2007. It was a used car. I believe it was about a 7-year-old car at the time. Do you know what the purchase price was for that car?
Acum mi-e greu să spun.
It would be hard for me now to say.
Vă spun incorect.
I could bring some erroneous estimates. I remember it was about 7,000 euro that my father paid for that car. It was a second-hand car, used car that he bought from Germany.
All right. Of course, we're talking about these issues because in the notice of hearing, we stated that our concerns related to inexplicable wealth for several years, and unexplained wealth refers to a negative balance between identified sources of income and expenses. According to its preliminary analysis, the Commission identified negative balances for 7 years, for the years 2011 through 2015, and then also for 2019 and 2020. The total estimated unexplained wealth was 1,140,328 lei, and under Law 65, a subject does not meet the criteria for financial integrity if the difference between wealth, income, and expenses for the 12 years exceeds in total 20 monthly average salaries or 234,000 lei. Now, after you received the notice of hearing, you provided the explanatory notes on March 4th and March 5th. And in your notes, you state that your parents had the financial capacity to cover your family's negative balance for the identified years. In the years 2011 through 2013, the negative balance respectively was first 15,243 lei, then 4,460 lei, and then last for 2013, 39,674 lei. So let me ask, did your parents provide financial support in each of those years to cover the negative balances?
Nu cred că...
No, I don't think it would be correct to answer in this way. Basically, I don't even know how to answer the most correctly, assuming that the national specific of our country is that parents help their children. Well, I assume that abroad parents also help their children, but this is regarded from a different perspective. This is documented as far as I know, but in our country, let's say so that we have the traditions which do not provide for this support. I cannot call it support even to be documented in a certain legal manner. So, as I said, during the rounds of questions, we've been living together. Obviously, I did not keep an account of the incomes of our expenses and savings of my families, as well as they did not do that for me and my family. But while living all together, we used to take part all the time in these joint household activities. So if you paid attention to, in some of the rounds of questions, I mentioned that only during 1.5 year period, my family lived separately from my parents. But during my whole life, and as long as my father was alive, we used to live together. I cannot say that every year if I did not have something, we could receive for them for some expenditure. But basically, we did not have a way of life to afford luxurious holidays or to have some purchases of goods. If you can notice, we had the focus in our family on savings, on accumulating funds. We did not focus to have in our family more than one transportation means. And while saying my family, I speak my family and my parents' family. This is why we had just a single car, single vehicle, and at the same time we had a living space. Maybe I repeat myself, but we did not have commercial spaces acquired or businesses. The relatives of the parents were also checked, and my in-laws' relatives were checked. So in these circumstances, I could say that their sources and their decent way of living of my parents allowed them to acquire this quite significant amount of which we benefited also in terms of some expenses. If you can notice, the expenses of my family were not in terms of purchasing some goods, but these were expenses according to the regulation, savings, deposit in the bank, and so on. That would be my answer to your question.
So I just want to make sure we understand what you meant in your supplemental note when you said your parents had the financial capacity to cover your family's negative balance for the identified years. So I understood you to be saying that the support that your parents provided accounted for the difference between the identified expenses and sources of income for just your family considered by itself.
Da, exact.
Yes, you're right.
And if we look for later years, the Commission's calculation for 2014 was that there was a negative balance of 105,443 lei. In 2019, a negative balance of 91,528 lei. And then in 2020, the calculation was for a negative balance of 344,076 lei. And again, it's by your statement, the resources that your parents provided covered that balance.
Da, matematica simplă, cel puțin
Yes, it's
arată,
simple. The simple mathematical calculations shows that the resources and financial capacity of my parents was sufficient to cover this balance, not taking into account the income, their incomes and savings till 2011. So I emphasize this information, saying that my mother has been working for more than 50 years, and my father has been working from 1968. So without taking into account their incomes and savings till 2011, I just randomly made some underlining aspects on the real estates and the amounts at which those properties were acquired allowed us to acquire the deficit identified by the Commission related to that unbalance between the incomes and experiences. But if you might forgive my courage, maybe it would not be fair to look at this question in terms of incomes of my family. Well, I understand that formally we identify the incomes of my family and the expenditure, but the way, this way, or the style I used to live and still live with my parents do not allow me to say that this is separately my income and this is the income of my parents, because I'm the only child in my family and we used to help us every time, and I do not consider it to be correct to say, for example, that for 2015 we had a deficit was identified taking into account the incomes of their family in this specific amount, because to the income of my family I also add, or I'm summing also the incomes of my parents' family, which and by the way, their bank accounts and the pension and all the other incomes are in my management. And the pension they received as a heir's pension, which was done by court, but still.
All right. You may recall the Commission did not calculate a negative balance for 2022, and I believe you have with you there a copy of the 5-year declaration that you submitted to the commission on the 28th of August 2023. Could you refer to page 13 of the declaration? And you may recall this declaration covers the years 2018 through 2022.
Cineva mă ajută să înțeleg aici, da?
Would someone help me to find it here or not? Because it's very hard to concentrate, to identify it. Please, may you repeat once again what declaration you mean?
It's the 5-year declaration that you submitted to the commission on August 28th, 2023.
Dacă are anume din 5 ani.
Which one exactly?
Dacă mă puteți ajuta, că
If
nu
you
pot
can
concentra
help me,
în
because I
care
cannot
este.
focus to find it. It's on the screen also?
Ok. Nu lucrează șuricelul, nu știu de ce. Bine. Dar dacă puteți
Technical
să arătați
issues.
care este ea,
So please, may you point to it on the handouts, on the materials?
All right, Mr. Rotari, do you now have a copy? Yeah.
Sperăm că e ea, da.
I hope it's the one.
Okay. So just to make sure we're talking about the same document, this should be your declaration that you submitted in August of 2023 to the commission.
Nu, asta e în ianuarie 2023.
Now it's for January 2023.
And do you not have that also on your computer screen?
Dar nu știu din ce considerent toate modelele de declarații.
I don't know why all the declaration forms submitted, transmitted by the Secretariat are from January.
Pe ecran mă uit.
Maybe we should double check.
Dar văd doar un tabel pe ecran.
I can see just one table for the years 2021, 2022, 16, 17.
Okay, so yeah, we'll see if we can get additional paper copies. It sounds perhaps like maybe the same document was reproduced by mistake when there should have been different documents copied. But in any event, I believe you have in front of you on the computer screen, this would be the first page of the declaration. Do you recognize this? And if you wish, we can scroll through to look at the entire document.
Și normal să-l văd, cum pot să spun că...
Well, obviously I'd like to see it because otherwise I could not tell I recognize it or not.
Yeah, just take the time you need to look through it, and then once you have, let us know.
Bine, dar pot eu cu cursorul...
Well, could I control it with the mouse? Because it's hard to know who is controlling the mouse, and I cannot focus. Information is just flowing on the screen.
Sau dacă îmi puteți asigura că...
Or if you could let me have this on hard copy, it would be perfect.
Okay, we'll do that. Yeah, we'll just take a moment to make sure we have the right documents. I apologize for the delay.
Totul e ok.
It's okay, I understand.
Well, Mr. Rotari, while we're waiting, maybe I can advance this by asking the question somewhat differently. Do you recall that in the 5-year declaration that you submitted to the commission, you noted that you had received from your mother a donation of 200,000 lei in 2022? Do you remember that being part of your declaration?
I don't recall exactly. Especially now I am nervous, but I do remember certainly that in 2015, after my father passed away, I know that my mother gave me a considerable amount of money, about 20,000 euros. But it could happen. If I wrote it in the declaration, then it happened, because there are so many numbers, there are so many dates and numbers, and it's hard for me to remember them by heart. But certainly, if I wrote it in the declaration, it happened. And when somebody writes a declaration, it has time to focus much more and to write accurate numbers than right now. I'm in front of you, I'm nervous, and I don't remember everything. So if it's in the declaration, then it is.
Well, we'll then try to make sure we have a copy of the declaration so you can see it.
Da.
Okay.
Yes, some of the other commission members may have questions. Commissioner Ciminini.
Yeah, while waiting, Mr. Rotari, you said that you and your family have always lived with your parents, and after your father passed away with your mother. Is this correct?
Yes, we do live together even presently.
Corect.
Correct.
So can you describe which is the way of living of your extended family, because your family is not only you, your wife, and the 2 children, but also your parents. Can you describe us as you live, who is taking care of preparing the food, if you have lunch and dinner all together, or you have a separated kitchen, if you have only one family budget or 2 distinguished family budget in which you do some calculation who has bought the garbage, who has bought the bread, and just to give us a picture that we can understand in a correct way. Thanks.
It's a more pleasant question and much easier question for me than to remember exact numbers, and I can reply to you. Let me start my reply by saying that I would love at my old age to live in such an environment as it is now, as my family, my mother and father had from my part. So we live in a 3-floor building. At the first floor we have the garage and the technical floor. At the second floor we have the floor where my mother lives, and it has a kitchen there, a single kitchen. Our building has 1 kitchen and we all use it. Me and the family, my own family, we live at the next floor, and my daughter lives abroad. She is studying there, and basically we are 3 at that 3rd floor. Me, my wife, and the other child. And if to speak about cooking, I can say that I'm the one cooking in the family, because I have my profession as a lawyer. Sometimes I have more time. Unfortunately, my mother for a few years feels very bad. She's quite sick, and in the past year she basically does not leave the bed. So taking this into account, you can understand that she is not managing her bank account or her card. We purchase all the groceries, but even back in the day when my mom was much more mobile and she was a school teacher and my father was a judge, even back then, the last years of my father worked in Belts, and he was traveling from Chisinau to Belts. He was purchasing some grocery from Belts as well. Throughout the week, we were the one buying the groceries. I mean, my family, me and my wife, and we were managing the family lifestyle or the budget from joint sources, we and my mother and father. But I cannot say that there's a bag of money where everybody contributes to and takes. No, I can say that each of us has their own reserves. And we never asked whose monies are used to pay the bills, or whose monies are used to pay the grocery. We never had such questions. We would buy it from, if we buy the groceries, me and my wife, we use our budget. If my parents there, so we kind of pooled our resources. And legally, we cannot say that my parents are part of my family, because the family code regulates what is a family from the legal point of view. But from moral point, and I can say that my family is pretty expanded, and it was a big family. It was at least when my father was alive, and then after my father passed away, my family decreased a little bit. And this is my reply. Maybe I missed something. Please ask again. I'm here to explain if I was not comprehensive.
Okay, I think now you should have before you a copy of the declaration you submitted in August of 2023. And again, if you...
Yes, I think it's that one.
Okay, so please look at page 13. you'll see that,
Am deschis-o, da?
Yes, I've opened it there.
and under item 2, you identify a donation that you received from your mother of 200,000 Moldovan lei, correct?
Nu exclus să fie așa, cred că e corect.
I think it's correct. Yes, I don't exclude the possibility. I think it's correct.
So my question is, that's the only year for which you identify a donation from your mother. Did you receive donations from her for earlier years?
Nu știu cât de corect să numesc.
I don't know if it's fair to call them donations because we never formalized this amount of money with the legal documents. I just received in 2015, as I said, I received about 20 or 21,000 euros, and this happened after my father passed away. So it was not the only amount of money that I received and benefited from my parents, in this case from my mother.
Răspunsul
So my reply is yes, I received others.
All right, you were referring to money you received in 2015 after your father's death. This declaration relates to the years
exact.
2018 to 2022. Other than the 200,000 lei donation that you identify for 2022, during the period of the declaration, did you receive other donations from your mother?
Așa nu pot să vă răspund.
I cannot reply, I don't remember. I can verify, I can check the declaration, but it could happen that I had other donations, but not as high amount as this one.
Okay, Mr. Rotari.
Mai degrabă așa spun, cred că n-au fost.
I can say that I think that these are the main ones that I remembered. I think this is the right answer. Probably I needed this money for some objective. I don't remember now for what I needed this money, but probably these were the main donations.
All right. And you will recall that when you were a judge, you filed annual declarations with NIA, correct? Up through 2014.
Da, 2014.
Yes, it's correct. 2014, if I'm not mistaken, was my last year of a judge. And yes, that is correct. January 2014 was my resignation time, and prior to that year, every year I submitted a declaration to the National Integrity Authority, declaration for income and personal interest, or I don't know exactly how it is titled now.
All right, and we've reviewed your declarations for the years 2012, 2013, and 2014. You do not identify in those declarations any donations from your parents during that period, correct?
Da, nu am
Yes, you are right. I did not mention the donations.
Okay. And you also have submitted a 5-year declaration to the pre-vetting commission in their evaluation process last year. And in that declaration, you did not identify any donations from your parents. Correct?
Corect.
Correct.
So if that is true, then the only donation that you've identified in any declaration as being received from your parents was the one in the declaration we were just looking at earlier, the 200,000 lei donation that you received in 2022, correct?
Once again, I would not call this amount as a donation. Donation in civil sense means non-reimbursement of the amount, means a transaction which doesn't mean to be reimbursed. And throughout my life, me, together with my parents, we have managed jointly our budgets, and also they are separate. This means that if I needed some money, I would take from my parents, and if I was successful, I would return the money. If I was not successful in my activity, my parents would forget the amount. I don't exclude the fact that I return the money, so I would not legally analyze it as a donation. This is why I did not even declare it or mention it in other declarations of assets. This is one. And secondly, when I was working as a judge, this is why I didn't include it as when I was a judge. And if I'm not mistaken, the cash amount of money, it was not mandatory to be declared when I was working as a judge. So it wasn't a mandatory requirement to mention the cash amount in the declaration. And if I'm not mistaken, in 2016 the law was changed, and back in the day I did not need to declare this cash amount when I was a judge. If I would not follow the rules, I would have had the problems with the National Integrity Authority. But I want you to understand me correctly. I prepared a 1-minute speech to conclude the hearing, but I suspect that the essence of my speech is right to be mentioned now, to respond to your question. And if you allow me, I can mention that speech. If you allow me, I can give you a longer reply. So we all try to build a rule of law state, more or less, each of us. And I'm speaking about real local citizens. We're trying to take the best practices from the West, and it's good that we're taking their practices, but we're not taking blindly all of those practices and trying to root them here, because we have a different mentality, and we have an objectively different mentality because we were marked by another vector for development. I'm speaking about the Soviet Union, I speak about the socialist gulag and so on. And why I'm opening the brackets here. We should filter and we should adapt the good traditions from the West, and we should adapt them to our local mentality and our local style. And now, if we speak about, if we as two lawyers, if we speak about it, you speak about a donation transaction, and I don't call it like this because I look at the local national spirit, how we understand donation. I cannot give it another legal title. I don't know how to call this aid that my parents gave me. Yes, it is categorized as a donation, but it's not as a donation as the West sees it. And the pre-vetting and the vetting exercise, it's a perfect and welcomed exercise in our society. But we are not ready to do this exercise. We're not ready, and the evaluators, especially the international evaluators, should take into account this local specificity, the national specificity, because it's something that happens so often. All the candidates for the Supreme Court of Justice, majority of us have a deficiency between the income and expenses, and we cover that deficiency with the support of our parents. It might sound ridicule. I'm not saying that every candidate, but maybe every second candidate says this, and maybe this should lead for the Commission to take this into account and verify the declarations of the candidates, having this in mind, this style, and analyzing the lifestyle. Do they live with their parents? Do they have real estate registered by the parents, by the relatives? Maybe they took some luxurious vacations and so on. But okay, I am going away from the topic, but I wanted to highlight, to come back to your question regarding the notion of donation and how I didn't include it in my declaration of income and asset. I'm not trying to cover my bases, but I'm calling things as they are. I don't see these money as donations because sometimes I gave back the money to my parents. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle, and it's a style of, it's a choice, and that you should take into account. And once again, I have to remind you that when I was a judge, there was no requirement to declare all the cash that I had, and it was not part of the declaration of income and assets and personal interests.
Why, in your declaration that you submitted to the Commission, did you identify the $200,000 or the 200,000 lei received in 2022 as a donation from your mother, and other amounts were not characterized as donations? I'm just trying to understand the difference in your mind. Why did you include it for 2022 but not otherwise?
So all amounts are seen by me in the same. Maybe third parties see it differently. And obviously, before I start to reply to the questions and before I complete the declarations, every respondent verifies, if they can verify, their economic potential, their finances, according to the de facto circumstances. So I have a loan from a very close friend and a significant loan, I can say. And this loan, obviously, having the experience of the pre-vetting commission, I saw that I cannot show only with my income and my wife's income. And in this case, I was forced to look back and start analyzing my history and to see the possibilities of my parents' income, because they were always ready to help me, and they helped me in the past. And I didn't track every single amount that my parents gave me throughout the years. And even from my own work experience, which started in 1995. In 1995, after I graduated the faculty, I started to work, I started to have a family, I started to increase my household, and I started saving. And once again, our society was not ready for such an evaluation, and I never even thought about the possibility that every amount gained or every amount received from my mother, from my father, or any any gift received at the wedding, at the birthday, I will have to document, I will have to track it, and I will have to respond because after 10 or 20 years this will be necessary. So my reply is that going through the pre-vetting evaluation commission showed me some deficiencies, some gaps which I could not explain because I forgot. I never tracked all my income, and these deficiencies were justified by presenting the pertinent proof. And I am being honest, I forgot that in 2000, and by the way, I prepared the information, I forgot that in 2007, my parents sold that apartment. I don't even know if that information was submitted to the pre-vetting commission. I forgot. We don't document, I shouldn't say we don't document, we don't pay attention to this. But I would like to say that the Alba Iulia apartment was purchased with the amount of 80,000, approximate 80,000, in 2004, if I'm not mistaken. And it was exchanged with 734,000 because this was the market price, so 10 times more. So imagine, this is a big flow of incoming money, especially speaking about the cash, because they were dealing in cash. And to be very honest, I'm saying the same. Right now, recently, when I was answering to the vetting commission, I found checks or bills that my father saved. I don't know how I found it. It's a miracle in my view, because I was looking for these checks, but I forgot, and I forgot that my father had a allocation of 11,000 euros because he was working to the Supreme Court of Justice, and he had an allowance for that. So I found a bill just by accident, and it's a proof supporting the flow of cash. And because of these reasons, I was forced to start remembering, to start to look, to start to see where the income is coming, so that I am able to explain that my parents had a financial means to support me, and to prove that I'm not lying, I'm honest. And working throughout all my life, and it happened that I was working in 3 positions at the time, and once again I'm working since 1995 and working in so many jobs, and with the support of my parents and with the support of my mom and dad, I was able to save up and to use other means to buy other things that are building our capital, our assets, or our household, if I can call it like this.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Rotari. I think we've concluded our questions, and as you anticipated, you would have an opportunity to make a brief statement. Is there anything you'd like to add to what you've said to this point?
Well, I would like to thank you for this hearing. Thank you for allocating the time. Thank you for the calmness with which you heard my replies. And not lastly, still, I would like for the Commission to take into account my ideas. I'm not saying these words while being nervous. No, this is words that could help for a correct evaluation. And I'm not saying that I'm a door of a church. I am a simple human, and I think that every human has a skeleton in the closet. But looking at the financial and ethical criteria, I can assure you I have no problem, no issue, I present no issue and I think that I gave a maximum explanation so that I remove any doubt of the Commission regarding the two issues that you brought forth. And also, I would kindly ask you to take into account another thing. Once again, this is pure math. I made a table, and I kindly asked the Commission to look at the table and look at the amount which was the difference between the income of my family, let's call it family, and the expenses of my family. As you know, I've described it earlier. So basically, they are 2 times covered. And I would like for you, dear members of the Commission, to pay attention that they are double covered, only starting with the years 2011 to 2022. So prior to 2011, if we ask, and this question was asked by the Commission, they asked for my parents to prove their financial sources and financial capacity, and I can assure you that my parents worked even prior to 2011, and the Commission mentioned that my parents could save about 292,000, so almost 300,000 savings in 4 years. But imagine how much my parents could have saved in 40 years, because they've been working even before 2011. But okay, I don't want to impose, I don't want to play on the feelings. These are pure numbers, and the majority of us, we are lawyers or legal specialists, and we do not include the feelings here. But I kindly ask you to take this into account. Please keep in mind the lifestyle of Moldovans. I don't know if you checked or not, but we have this lifestyle, and throughout their lives, my parents never purchased big objects. They didn't have exacerbated expenses. They didn't go into luxurious vacations, and moreover, in the past 10 years of life and activity, for example, my father, after the reform, the justice reform, my father was transferred from the Supreme Court to Belts Court of Appeal, and he refused additional allowances, but because he didn't have a apartment in Belts, he lived in the 3rd floor of the Court of Appeal Belts. Imagine to live in an office for 10 years. And my father was fully loyal to the profession. So I think that people with a lack of financial integrity would not do this, would not accept to live in a room of 12 square meters to fill this position of judge. But as I said, I will not bring the emotions, and I will let you analyze the numbers. And once again, thank you so much, dear Vetting Commission, and it was a very pleasant process this time for me, because, as I said, our society was not and is not ready for this exercise, and the first time it was very strange. And as you know, the Supreme Court of Justice has not taken a decision regarding the decision of the Pre-Vetting Commission, which failed me, didn't promote me, and I had the opportunity to go through the re-evaluation, and I had the opportunity to rethink my thoughts, and I had the opportunity, and I had enough time to look for pertinent documents and to present proof. And I would like to thank you for your attitude compared to the attitude of the Pre-Vetting Commission. And I said it to them, and I said it in the public. Imagine, it was 2:30 a.m. Saturday. I would receive a questionnaire with 20 questions with a deadline for Monday, 6 o'clock, when I have a job to go to 6 o'clock. So how is that possible? So the attitude of the pre-vetting commission was like this, and I appreciate your attitude as you presented, dear chairperson, dear members. You organized the work in more efficient manner, and you have my appreciation and my thank you. Thank you so much. This is what I wanted to say.
Well, that brings us then to the end of today's hearing. Mr. ROTARI, thank you again for the materials you've submitted and your answers to the Commission's questions. After the hearing, the Commission will approve an evaluation report stating its conclusion whether the subject meets the criteria for ethical and financial integrity under Law 65. The Commission will strive to complete its report and announce its conclusion as soon as possible. We generally seek to do so within a month after a subject's public hearing. The hearing is now closed. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you.
Vă mulțumim și dumneavoastră.
Thank you also.